Welcome back to Ethically and thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the essentials of endurance training. To be able to do that, I'm going to be breaking it down into two parts. Number one, what do most people think of when they think of endurance training? Number two, what are the different types of endurance training and the energy systems that are involved in different types of endurance training? When most people think of endurance, they're thinking about long distance runners. Some people are thinking about triathletes, decathletes, marathoners, cyclists, etc. But endurance training, these are all obviously endurance sports, but endurance training is not necessarily confined to these endurance sports alone. And the training methods will be different depending on what sport for which we're talking about endurance. And this is where a segue to the different types of endurance training methods may prove helpful. So what are the different types of endurance training that are available? So broadly, they are classified into general and specific endurance. General endurance is when you're able to resist fatigue for a longer period of time without any significant improvements to sport-specific performance. General endurance is useful for leisure, non-elite athletes to maintain basic fitness and the sharpness of their energy systems. For advanced athletes, general endurance is the stepping stone on which they improve better recovery times, increase the training load and the volume or the intensities, and increase the training frequency upon the basic endurance, that general endurance that they have developed. Specific endurance is when you're able to resist fatigue during a sport-specific movement for longer durations of time, both with low intensities of load and during competition with high intensities of load. This type of training is specifically aimed at maximal personal performance in a sport-specific activity, and the training should include sport-specific training means, methods, and intensities. Endurance training can be further broken down into four categories. They are speed endurance, short time endurance, middle time endurance, and long time endurance. When we talk about speed endurance, there are two categories: alactic and lactic speed endurance. Alactic speed endurance is when you are doing a load for a short period of time at extremely high intensities. You're not necessarily concerned about the heart rate relative to your maximal heart rate, but the main goal of training for alactic speed endurance is to improve maximal velocity or speed. The main energy system that provides energy to this type of workload is the phosphagen or creatine phosphate system, and you can think of sprinters here. The second part of speed endurance is lactic speed endurance. In lactic speed endurance, you're performing an activity at extremely high intensities, greater than 95% of your VO2 max and heart rate maximum, where the lactate accumulation is significantly higher and which inversely affects the motor capabilities of your muscles over a period of time. You're performing a particular activity for 10 to 30 seconds and you're going up to a maximum of 5 to 6 minutes with that high an intensity. Here, there is a high accumulation of lactic acid, as I mentioned, and the main energy system that provides energy to such type of activities is the anaerobic energy system. Think of crossfitters or strongmen here. Number two, short time endurance or maximal endurance. Maximal endurance is when you're training at 90 to 95% of your heart rate maximum, and you're continuing this activity for maybe 3 to 6 minutes and up to a maximum of 20 minutes. Here also there is a high accumulation of lactic acid, and it also again decreases the effort that you can put in as time progresses for which you're performing this particular activity. 90% of the energy is provided through the anaerobic system for this type of activity, and the remaining 10% is provided by the aerobic system, and as the time increases, the amount of aerobic to anaerobic energy provision starts to change. Think of high-intensity interval training protocols here. Number three, middle time endurance or tempo endurance. Here you're training at 75 to 85% of your heart rate maximum, and you're performing this activity for any time between 10 to 30 minutes. And the maximum you can do it for without lactic acid inhibiting your ability of your muscles is for 60 minutes. The lactic acid accumulation is nominal here. It's not as high as it is in maximal endurance or in lactic acid endurance, but as time progresses, it will take a toll on the body. 60 to 70% of the energy is provided through the anaerobic system, and the remaining 30 to 40% is provided by the aerobic system. Think of medium distance marathon runners here. Number 4, long time endurance. One of the training methodologies is called long, slow distance, that is why LSD, or basic endurance. Here, you're training at 60 to 70% of your heart rate maximum. You're doing this type of activity, low intensity, high volume activities for usually greater than 30 minutes and extending up to maybe a few hours. The main energy system that provides energy here is the aerobic system, which is more efficient than the anaerobic system or the phosphagen or creatine phosphate system. Think of long distance runners or triathletes here, but keep in mind that this is not the only form of training that long distance runners or triathletes take up. This is the basic endurance on which they build sport specific endurance later. You need to understand two things here when we talk about endurance training. They are anaerobic threshold and aerobic threshold. These are the main types of thresholds that you're trying to improve when you're training for endurance. Training for aerobic threshold improves your gentle fitness. It improves the cardiac function to be able to pump enough blood to the various muscles that are working, increase the economy of the metabolic system so that it uses the energy wisely, and the capacity to resist stress under high load for a longer period of time. So that is where training for aerobic threshold mainly has an impact on. Moving on to anaerobic threshold, when you're training for anaerobic threshold, you're mainly training to resist accumulation of lactic acid. You're increasing the ability to adapt to increasing lactic acid creation in the body. You're improving your ability to eliminate lactic acid from your working muscles in a better manner, and you're increasing the physiological and psychological resistance to pain or spasm during high intensity workloads during training or competition. General endurance training is important for both athletes and for the general recreational exerciser, but the goal of general endurance training for these populations is widely different. For the general non-elite recreational exerciser, general endurance improves cardiac function. It increases capillary density, which means there is better transfer of oxygen and carbon dioxide between veins and arteries, and increased amount of mitochondrial units in your muscles, which means improved economy of the energy system for lower intensity loads for a longer period of time. For the athlete, the general endurance training is the foundation or the stepping stone on which sport-specific endurance programming is built upon. Contrary to popular belief, long sessions on the treadmill or other such machines, also known as steady-state cardio, is not the only way to improve general endurance. It is a good way to improve, but it is not the only way to improve. Resistance training and high-intensity interval training or HIIT protocols have been shown to improve the general endurance of both non-trained and trained athletes. But one has to keep in mind that programming for general endurance should also include steady-state cardio such as treadmill in addition to resistance training or HIIT protocols. I hope this video was helpful to you. Let me know if it did in the comment section below. We'll talk about sport-specific training in the next video, which will be posted next Saturday. Like and share the video, subscribe and turn on the notifications so that you receive a notification when I'm posting the next video on sport-specific training. If you would like to get a personalized training and or a nutrition program, please reach out to me by sending a message on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram or via email, for which appropriate links are provided in the description box below. I'll see you all next time. Keep making those gains.